dur devamanavatitah sasamsu sadhavo ragyam khatpetu puspavrishtayah tatra dundu bhayo nedur devamanavatitah sasamsu sadhavo ragyam khatpetu puspavrishtayah. Tatra dundu bhayo nedur devamanavavadita sasamsu sadhavo ragyam khatpetu puspavrishtayah. Tatra dundu bhayo nedur devamanavatitah sasamsu sadhavo ragyam khatpetu puspavrishtayah. Tatra dundu bhayo nedur devamanavatitah sasamsu sadhavo ragyam khatpetu puspavrishtayah. Tatra dundu bhayo nedur devamanavatitah sasamsu sadhavo ragyam khatpetu puspavrishtayah. Synonyms: tatra, thereafter; dundubhayah, drums; neduhu, were sounded; deva, the demigods from other planets; manava, men from all countries; vaditaha, beaten by; sasamsuhu, praised; sadhavaha, honest; ragyam, by the royal order; khat, from the sky; petuhu, began to fall; puspavrishtayah, showers of flowers. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Thereafter both men and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect, and from the sky fell showers of flowers. Translation with repetition. Thereafter both men and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect, and from the sky fell showers of flowers. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Bhismadev was respected both by the human beings and by the demigods. The human beings live on earth and similar other planets in the Bhur and Bhuvar group of planets. But the demigods live in the Swar or heavenly planets, and all of them knew Bhismadev as a great warrior and devotee of the Lord. As a Mahajan or authority, he was on the level of Brahma, Narada and Shiva, although he was a human being. Qualification on a par with the great demigods is possible only on attainment of spiritual perfection. Thus Bhismadev was known all over the universes, and during his time, interplanetary travel was effected by finer methods than the futile endeavors of mechanical spacecraft. When the distant planets were informed of the passing away of Bhismadev, all the inhabitants of the upper planets, as well as of the earth, dropped showers of flowers to show due respect to the departed great personality. The showering of flowers from heaven is a sign of recognition of great demigods, and it should never be compared to the decoration of a dead body. The body of Bhismadev lost its material effects due to being surcharged with spiritual realization. And thus the body was spiritualized as when iron becomes red hot when in contact with fire. The body of a fully self-realized soul is not therefore accepted as material. Special ceremonies are observed for such spiritual bodies. The respect and recognition of Bhismadev are never to be imitated by artificial means, as it has become a fashion to observe the so-called Jayanti ceremony for any and every common man. According to authorized sastras, such Jayanti ceremony for an ordinary man, however exalted he may be materially, is an offense to the Lord, because Jayanti is reserved for the day when the Lord appears on the earth. Bhismadev was unique in his activities, and his passing away to the kingdom of God is also unique. Since the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport, Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. Hare Krishna. So this part of Bhagavatam where we are seeing the passing away of Bhismadev, very glorious. We saw in the previous verse, knowing that Bhismadev had merged into the unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute, all present there became silent like birds at the end of the day. Very poetic. All present there became silent like birds at the end of the day. And today's verse we have says, thereafter both men and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect. And from the sky fell showers of flowers. Tatra dundu bhayo nedur deva manavavaditaha sasamsuhu sadhavo ragyam khat petuhu puspa vrashtaya. Vrashtaya is rain or shower. What kind of shower? Puspa vrashtaya. Puspa vrashti. Showers of flowers. Where did it come from? Khat. Khat means the sky. We say Bhumirapo Nalavayu, kham. That kham, a ka, k, refers to the sky. So from sky, khat. Khat petuhu. Petu is falling down. What did fall down from the sky? Khat petuhu puspa vrashtayaha. There were showers of flowers from the sky. Tatra dundubhayo nedur. Dundubhayo. Dundubhayo is one of the names of Vasudev, father of Krishna, is called Ananta Dundubhi. Dundubhi, Dundubhayo. Dundubhayo means kettle drums. So drums is being played. Neduhu, Dundubhayo Neduhu. Deva Manava Vaditaha. By whom? By Deva, the demigods. As Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the residents of Swarloka or Swargaloka, and Manavaha, the residents of Bhu and Bhuvarloka. Okay, so we chant the Gayatri mantra, Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tatsarvitur Varenyam. So Bhu is referring to Bhuloka. Bhuvarloka is another planet above this Bhuloka, but there also the residents are Manava. But Swarloka is Devas. So Deva Manavavaditaha. Sasamsuhu, Sasamsuhu. Sasamsuhu is coming from the same root as Prasamsa. You praise. Samsa, Prasamsa or Sasamsa. Sasamsuhu. They glorified, they praised. Who praised? Sasamsuhu, Sadhavo Ragyam. The royal order as well as the sadhus. Sadhava Ragyam. They praised the passing away of Bhismadev. A unique thing which is happening here. Thereafter, both men and demigods, Deva Manavavaditaha, sounded drums, Dundu Bhayo Nedur, in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect. Honest is Sadhu, Sadhava, and Ragyam is the royal order. Commenced demonstration of honor and respect, Sasam Suhu, and from the sky fell showers of flowers, Khat Petuhu Puspa Vrishtayaha. So there are many interesting words here. If you see the word Sadhava is translated by Prabhupada as honest. Right? Sadhu is supposed to be honest in his conduct, character, behavior. In Subhasitam, there is a definition of the word sadhu which comes, it says, Manasya ekam, Bachasya ekam, Karmana ekam Mahatmanam. Manasya ekam, Bachasa ekam, Karmana ekam Mahatmanam. Manasya anye, Vachasa anye, Karma anye Duratmanam. Manasya ekam, Bachasya ekam, Karmana ekam Mahatmanam. What somebody is thinking in his mind, he executes that. That comes out in his words, or what he speaks, what he thinks, and what he acts. There is harmony in that. He is considered to be sadhu. Sadhu is not supposed to cheat others. Sadhu doesn't have any malicious intention. Sadhavaha, ragya, and whereas somebody, duratma, who is a duratma? Manasya anya, vachasya anya, and karmana anya. He's thinking something, saying something, and acting in a different way. That's called the duplicitous behavior, duratmana. So thereafter, both men and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect, and from the sky fell showers of flowers. It's a beautiful purport by Prabhupada. Many interesting points. I want to show you some numbers. When our school days, maybe some numbers will be given and then you'll be asked, what is the next number in this? Isn't it some kind of a pattern? Is there anything that you can see? Why? What you're seeing there? It's stuck, is it? What is this number? Okay, you may not get it, but if you search in Google, 107 people die in every single minute. 6,390 people die every hour. And 150,000 people die every day. Astonishing, isn't it? 1.78 people die every second. So Mataji got up, came, paid obeisances. 4-5 log to chale gaye. 107 people die in every minute. 6,390 people die every hour. And 150,000 people, this is Google. And you can verify this number. So we are actually surrounded by death everywhere. Right? But we don't realize that. So this verse of Bhagavatam is mentioning about passing away of one personality which is extraordinary, right? Which is so special that it was not only recognized by the residents of Bhur and Bhuvarloka. Prabhupada is writing the human beings of all countries, but also the Swargaloka. Swargaloka, the residents of Swargaloka are the Devatas, the demigods. They have very high standard of livings. their mental strength, physical strength, their intellectual abilities, their means of enjoyment are far higher, far higher. But they also made a note that this person has perfected his life and is going back home, back to Godhead. And they are showering flowers, flower showers. Right? So very interesting. These things may not strike us, but it should. And why Bhishmadev could achieve that position which he did, for which he got this flower shower from the demigods? Prabhupada is writing, qualification on par with great demigods is possible only on attainment of spiritual perfection. He was compared at par with Brahma, Shiva. Qualification on par with great demigods is possible only on attainment of spiritual perfection. The qualification, if you go to the spiritual platform, the example is given that he was on the level of Brahma, Narada and Shiva, although he was a human being. And this is possible. He is treated in the same level of Narada and Brahma and Shiva because of spiritual qualification. Materially, actually, we may not be able to match the demigods. It's impossible because they are far more advanced in terms of the bodily enjoyment, the bodily functionalities, they're far superior. But spiritually we can. If somebody qualifies himself, somebody practices this human life, somebody uses this human life for practicing spiritual advancement and reaches the spiritual perfection, it is possible. One very nice example of this is given in Bhagavatam, a little later cantos. And this verse is, it goes like this, Swapada mule patitam tam arbhakam. Now this is very extraordinary circumstance, the context of this verse. The circumstance or the situation is, Lord Narasimhadev has come out of the pillar. And he has torn apart Hiranyakashipu. And he is furious. He's like angry like anything. And he has, he has garlanded himself with the intestines of Hiranyakashipu and sitting, roaring in the throne. And there was present, because it's an extraordinary situation, such a big demon has been killed, all the demigods were present. Like in this kind of a situation, they're putting some flower shower, so they were all present with folded hands. And mind you, including Lakshmi, and they have never seen a furious form of Narayana like this. So furious and so angry. And what they can do, with their folded hands, they are offering prayers. With their advanced consciousness, with their advanced level of thinking, with their advanced words, choicest words, which is literally embellished, very beautiful prayers they are offering. But Narasimhadev is not getting pleased by that. Without knowing what to do, they pushed Prahlad, a 5-year-old boy. And what did he do? Swapada mule patitam tam arbhakam. That small boy, Prahlad, fell down. Swapada mule patitam. Patitam fell flat. Dandavat. Swapada mule patitam tam arbhakam. Arbhakam is a child. This child, Prahlad, 5-year-old boy, fell down in front of Narasimhadev. Swapada mule patitam tam arbhakam. Bilokya. Narasimhadev looked at him. He was furious. He was very angry. He saw one small boy has fallen down in front of me. Bilokya. He looked at him. Bilokya devaha kripaya pariplutaha. Kripaya pariplutaha. His heart melted out of compassion. Pariplutaha. Kripaya devaha kripaya. Bilokya devaha kripaya pariplutaha. His heart melted. His hair stand on its end. He looked at Prahlad and he said, Utthapya tat srishni adadhat karambhujam. Utthapya. He lifted him. Utthapya tat srishni. He kept his hand, tat srishni adadhat. Adadhat is to place. Adadhat on his head. Karambhujam, his lotus feet, his lotus hand. Karambhujam. Kara is hand, Ambujam is lotus. So he lifted him and kept his lotus hand on him. Utthapya tat shrishni adadhat karambhujam. Kalahi vitrishta dhyam krita bhayam. This word is an expression of Bhagavatam is so powerful. Vitrishta dhyam. Kalahi vitrishta dhyam krita bhayam. Vitrishta, people like us who are there in this material world, who are always tormented by material miseries, which appears in due course of time. Kala ahi. Kala ahi. Ahi means a snake. A snake like time, which is always devouring us. We are always in the pangs of the modes of material nature and the miseries in the form of this kala. Kala ahi. Kala ahi vitrishta. Dhyam krita bhayam. By just placing his hand on the head of Prahlad, Prahlad became abhayam, became fearless. Dhyam krita bhayam. Dhya, the consciousness which is always tormented, which is fearful because of the material miseries which are inflicted, that consciousness became fearless. Abhayam krita bhayam. Sopada mule patitam tamarbhakam vilokya devah kripaya pariplutaha. So, the point I'm trying to draw here is, even though the demigods are very highly qualified, both materially, physically, financially, economically, in all possible ways, they could not pacify the Lord. But a simple 5-year-old boy, Prahlad, from Bhuloka, rather he's born in a family of demons, could pacify the Lord because of his devotion in the heart, because of his pure, unadulterated, intense devotion. He could please the Lord. What is required is spiritual perfection. Prabhupada mentions about one thing here, that there are 3 basically points. This is the first point is this about the spiritual perfection, right? And when somebody develops that spiritual perfection, and how does one develop that? Over a period of practice. And there is a beautiful verse in Bhagavatam, again comes in Bhagavatam, worth remembering. It says, Nottama shloka vartanam, Nottama shloka vartanam, Jusatam swakathamratam, Nottama shloka vartanam, Jusatam swakathamratam. Interesting verse. It's actually quoted by Prabhupada. It's first canto, 18th chapter, 4th verse. Nottama shloka vartanam, Jusatam tat kathamratam, Syat sambhramo antakalepi, Smaratam tat padambhujam. Nottama shloka vartanam. If you have engaged your human form of life, Nottama shloka vartanam, Jusatam tat kathamratam. If you have engaged your human form of life in hearing and remembering the pastimes of the Lord. Nottama shloka vartanam, Jusatam tat kathamratam. If you have engaged your human body in hearing Krishna's activities, glories, pastimes, and you are also engaging in practical devotional service, then what will happen? Syat sambhramo antakalepi. Antakale, what actually happens antakale, at the time of death? At the time of death, because we have got so many attachments and so many thoughts we are going through in our minds, difficult to focus on the Supreme Lord. Sambhramo, Brahma means illusion. Brahma means some kind of error. Sambhramo means, there's a complete chaos in the mind because you are thinking so much. See, death is an abrupt interruption to our human activities, right? It just comes. You never know. You've not planned it in life. It's not like, okay, some notice has been given on so and so date, we have to quit our body. It doesn't happen. So sometimes, when we ask people, why don't you come for some services or something, some festivals, some retreat, we find it difficult because there are some things which we are going through in our life. We are not able to give it up. We're not able to come. But death comes, it doesn't give you any this thing. There is no negotiation there. It comes, it's over. So what is going on in your mind? What will happen to me? I have this unfulfilled desires. Who's going to take care? What will happen? So at that time, remembering the Lord is not possible. Syat sambhramo anta kalepi smaratam tatpadam bhujam. So what has to be done? How is it possible then? Nottama shloka vartana. Nottama shloka vartana. Practice now. Nottama shloka vartana. Jusatam tat kathamratam. The nectarian pastimes, activities of the Lord, one should train oneself to hear and engage in the service. Then, syat sambhrama anta kalepi. Even though at the time of death there could be, this thing, you, instead of getting disturbed, because you have practiced, you have developed your consciousness, you have elevated your consciousness to the transcendental platform, you will be able to remember padam bhojam, tat padam bhojam, smaratam tat padam bhojam. The lotus feet of the Lord will come as remembrance. In one of the Jayantis or appearance day of Gandhiji, Prabhupada was invited to speak. And Prabhupada said that Gandhiji was a great freedom fighter who fought for the freedom of the whole country. Because he thought, or he said that freedom is the birthright of every citizen. Prabhupada says he fought for freedom, but actually we should fight for the love of Godhead. That is the birthright of every living entity, which Prahlad was experiencing. And 2-3 verses before, in this passing of Bhismadev, it is mentioned, each one of us, we can experience that. Because the Lord is the supreme reservoir of eternal, unconditional love. The love that we are looking for in this material world, which we are hankering after, is based on the body, is based on material conditions, is based on so many other parameters. Whereas the love for Krishna, unconditional. And it is our birthright to experience that. But we are not trained. Since we are not trained, we are not able to experience that. And that is actually a violence, because nobody has taught us, nobody has told us. We deserve to experience that Krishna Prem individually, uniquely. That can completely satisfy us. But instead of that, not being trained, like example, some Nobel laureate person comes and he goes to some place, some market, maybe some sabji mandi, and he has to interact and he has to speak about quantum physics. What those people will understand. But somebody who's trained, who's studying that, if a Nobel laureate comes and he explains that, can be easily understood by them. Something similar to that. Since we are not trained up, we don't know that we can actually experience love of Godhead, which can actually completely satisfy us. So here Prabhupada's purport, he's mentioning, this very interesting and important point is that the showering of flowers by the demigods was not some decoration of dead body. Because Bhismadev was already spiritualized. And the spiritualization is possible when you touch the spiritual subject. Special ceremonies are... the body of Bhismadev lost its material effects due to being surcharged with spiritual realization. And thus the body was spiritualized as when iron becomes red hot when in contact with fire. Similarly, when we are chanting the names of the Lord, we are actually coming in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. But since we are chanting on an offensive platform, we are not getting spiritualized. We have to come to the transcendental platform, we have to come to the spiritual platform to get completely spiritualized, like Bhismadev. So, to achieve that state, to attain that state of being completely spiritualized, that is, all that is needed is practice throughout this life. Practice with great zeal, earnestness, and endeavor. Then the other point which Prabhupada is mentioning here, third point, the second one I'll come to a little later, Third point which is mentioned here is the respect and recognition of Bhishma Dev are never to be imitated by artificial means, as it has become a fashion to observe the so-called Jayanti ceremony for any and every common man. We find even in ISKCON, some people die, and I was seeing somebody's death ceremony, and they were celebrating. It has become a fashion to celebrate some ordinary people as Jayanti. But that word Jayanti, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloki, no, the previous verse. Narayanam Namaskrityam, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam, Tato Jayam. Jayam, that Jayanti, Jaya is victory over ignorance. It's not so. The remembrance of the Lord is celebrated as Jayanti. The remembrance of the pure devotees of the Lord who are always in touch with the Lord are celebrated as Jayanti. This word is not, it is reserved for them. And Prabhupada's very strong statement is that it's an offense to observe the so-called Jayanti ceremony for any and every common man. What is that? According to authorized Shastras, such a Jayanti ceremony for an ordinary man, however exalted he may be materially, is an offense to the Lord. Because Jayanti is reserved for the day when Lord appears on the earth. So these are some of the very finer points. We may have some respect for someone, but doesn't mean that that person has, that the appearance day of that person has to be celebrated as Jayanti. There's one example of this, I was just thinking some time back. Mahatma Gandhi also read Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and he thought that after reading Bhagavad Gita, there should not be any injustice in our country. So he coined a term for people who are little, he coined a term called Harijan. Okay, literally that word Harijan means somebody who's close to Hari. There is a word which is used in Bhagavatam called Vishnujan. Vishnujan means who's dear to Vishnu. But imagine if I go close to somebody, Manish. Manish, you are looking so advanced. You have become very nicely. You are engaging in devotional service. You have become Harijan. अभी तो हाँ कर रहा है तो स्टार्ट करेगा या बस प्रभु हरिजन ही में दिखाऊं क्या मैं आपको right? Why this is when somebody else does something which is the way they think that it will help, it doesn't help. Why? Because Rupa Goswami gives a hint. Shruti smriti pancharatrik vidhir vina aikantika harer bhaktir utpadeva kalpate. If you do something which is not as per the scriptures, Shruti, Smriti, Pancharatrik, Vidhir Vina. Aikantiki means in your mind. Aikantiki Harer Bhakti. I'll do, Bhagwan ko mera ghar mein hai. I'll do something. Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir, Utpadeva Kalpate. It's a disturbance. It creates commotion. It creates some kind of chaos. That is why one has to take the reference of the scriptures and follow that and practice that. There is one second point which is there in the middle. First point we talked about was spiritual perfection, and the third one is about the Jayanti, which Prabhupada is mentioning in the middle, towards the end. There is one line which Prabhupada writes is, when the distant planets were informed of the passing away of Bhishma Dev, all the inhabitants of the upper planets, as well as on the earth, dropped showers, flower to show due respect to departed great personality. This one. Thus Bhishma Dev was known all over the universes, and during this time, interplanetary travel was effected by finer methods than the futile endeavors of mechanical spacecraft. Futile endeavors of mechanical spacecraft. Often, we think, this is a very fine point, but very interesting. Bhishma Dev was known all over the universes, and during his time, interplanetary travel was effected by finer methods than the futile endeavors of mechanical spacecraft. What is this? What does this mean? I remember some time back when I was in Bangalore and we were going for a pilgrimage to Mayapur, we had our bus breakdown. So from Calcutta, you reach Calcutta by train, and from Calcutta we were going to Mayapur in bus. There'll be 6-7 buses, and there was a breakdown in the bus. We were waiting for the bus to get repaired. What was happening is you feel disturbed because you were not expecting the bus to have this kind of a problem, and the bus is, it is broken down, and you're feeling disturbed and agitated. You're not reaching the dham. So what do? I mean, you start doing some gossip, you start talking about something. Fortunately, when the bus got repaired and we reached Dham, Mayapur, the devotee who was accompanying us, he told us one thing which is very striking, that in earlier days, people used to travel to different places of pilgrimage by foot. They used to walk. So nowadays, what we do, we just transport ourselves with the help of plane, right? We just take a flight and we reach there. Physically, we may be reaching there, but are we ready in our consciousness? Some places when we go, if we are not ready in our consciousness, physically all of you are sitting here, but how many of us are tuned to align with Bhagavatam's philosophy? How many of us have prepared ourselves? How many of us are prepared, including the speaker? What mood he is coming in? Is the mood to get some appreciation? Is the mood, to drive home this point that how nicely I spoke? Or is the mood, how I can help, how I can serve the devotees, how I can properly glorify the Lord in the right parampara? So if you don't develop the mood, even if you physically go there, you cannot actually attain the spiritual perfection. Like Prabhupada says, you can't buy a ticket to Vrindavan and go there. So what is it that happens? What is the contamination which we carry? The contamination which we carry is pointed out by Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita when he begins to acknowledge or admit Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava prichhami tvam dharma samudha cheta. Karpanya dosha. What? Arjuna was miserly? He had a lot of money and he was not spending? No, the word kripana is explained by Prabhupada in the purport, who has got the rare human form of life but not utilizing it for what it is meant. That is called kripana. You have this human form of life but you are wasting it in all other pursuits. So the contaminated consciousness that we are carrying is centered around me, I. That contamination, if you are going with that contamination, you will not see Vrindavan, you will not even touch Vrindavan. For example, some newcomer, if we tell them that we are going to Vrindavan, and if he has to plan for the trip, he will think, okay, now there are nice hotels which have come up in Vrindavan, we should find the most comfortable place, should have AC accommodation, it should be little far from Vrindavan because Vrindavan is so polluted these days, right? Why? Because it is all centered around me. If it is centered around me, I will not be able to get the spiritual vibration of that place. It should be centered around Krishna. So here it is mentioned that when the distant planets were thus Bhismadev was known all over the universe, and during his time interplanetary travel was effected by finer methods. It's not just taking some spacecraft or this thing from one place to another. The finer methods is the consciousness. Same holds true for all of us when we come together to hear Bhagavatam class. With what consciousness I am coming? With what is it that is going on inside me? Am I prepared to listen something with an open heart, keeping my ego at bay and ready to adapt and assimilate that knowledge and apply in life? Or I am coming with this thing, what is it going to be discussed? Is it going to be meant for me? Are these things meant targeting me? No, actually. That ego, when we drop it and when we hear with the mood of humility, there is an appreciation that comes. Imagine you give a very valuable diamond necklace to a monkey. What it will do? It doesn't have any value, it will break it apart. So we need to know the value of what we are getting, the value of human life, the value of associating with Bhagavatam, the value of knowing the departure of great souls like Bhismadev, so that we can learn and apply it in our lives. And when we do that, when we do it to the best of our ability, we get the spiritual perfection, and that spiritual perfection enables us to go back home, back to Godhead. These are some of the points from this verse. Any question anybody has? Spiritual qualification is basically coming to the spiritual platform, right? Like the example which Prabhupada gives, the iron acting as fire in touch with, it's called spiritualized or Krishnaized, right? Presently, we are in conditioned state of living where we have no understanding of who truly we are. That verse I was telling yesterday, Ajnanena abratam jnanam Mushyanti, 5th chapter, 15th verse. Krishna says this verse, very nice verse actually. Ajnanena avritam jnanam tena mushyanti jantavaha. So, because our true constitutional position or the real knowledge is covered by ignorance, Ajnanena abritam jnanam tena mushyanti jantavaha. Mushyanti means we are bewildered. And the phenomena of death is really a bewildering thing. It's a very bewildering thing. And we never prepare ourselves because we never operate. We never means, I think I'm referring to people who are not aware of spiritual life. Those of us who are exposed to and who have understood the importance, we should strive to go to that spiritual platform. It's a fact that we are going to die. And the human life is a life of responsibility. Responsibility doesn't mean that we should be attached. And detachment doesn't mean that you should be irresponsible. Right? So, you have to be responsibly engaged, at the same time you should be detached. So the thing is, Ajnanena abratam jnanam tena mushyanti jantavaha. The bewilderment comes because who we are is not known to us. Yesterday also I was telling the whole universe for us is centered around me. Because I am there, this is important to me, or this all revolves around me. We don't care about anything else which is happening in somebody else's life. We may have some concerns, we may have some this thing, but if it is not related to me, I'm not worried about it. So if it is revolving around me, I should be so more important, I should be so more vigilant to know who I am. And that we don't know. Ajnanena avritam jnanam tena mushyanti jantavaha. And so that's why we were bewildered. In the purport of that verse, Prabhupada says, ignorance means, or the veil, this covering means, it covers who we truly are and covers the knowledge about our loving relationship with Krishna. So that's why we keep looking for relationships in this material world, which is primarily on the bodily platform. The true definition of love is to give. But the definition of love here is to take. It's what is in it for me. Okay, I am liking this person because for some XYZ reason for myself. No, you have to give. And the true love when we are situated in, when we are giving it to Krishna, when Krishna gives out of love. When we give, when we experience that is called the spiritual perfection, and that is possible by coming to the spiritual platform. In the material platform, everything revolves around me and mine. I and me. Aham mameti. But when you go to the spiritual platform, everything revolves around Krishna. And that is what is our constitutional position. But because of this covering of Ajnana, we're not able to experience that. Does that help? Okay, before you ask the question, but remember your question, this point that birds became quiet. Actually, I was seeing the commentary of Biswanath Chakravarti Thakura. He makes a very salient point. The birds, you can see the chirping of birds throughout the day, especially in the morning. As soon as it becomes evening, that becomes silent. They completely become silent. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura comments that, the birds out of ignorance think that life has come to an end. Or there is no more tomorrow, there is not going to be a morning. So ignorantly they become silent. That today's activities were finished and they become silent. Similarly, Bhishma Dev's passing away, like birds became silent, the ignorant people would have thought that he merged or he just died, he passed his bodies. But there are people who are elevated, exalted. They knew that he has gone back home, back to God. And there is a difference that he makes. But anyway, just wanted to share, yeah. Yeah, the next verse, Yudhishthir was lamenting, it will come, yeah. Mm-hmm. You see, 1.9.46, if you see the next verse, a descendant of Bhrigu, Saunaka, after performing funeral rituals for the dead body of Bhishma Dev, Maharaj Yudhishthir was momentarily overtaken with grief. So if somebody says, just because I have taken to spirituality, I should be just sitting like one, I should be completely unaffected. Somebody is dying, somebody is taking birth, how does it matter? I'm spirit soul. I'm not supposed to be, affected by any of those things. I'm completely aloof. It doesn't work. When a normal human being whose consciousness is evolved, empathize with the pain of another person. Empathizing and getting carried away are two different things. Though Arjuna heard Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, understood everything, Nashta moha smriti labdva tvat prasadat maya achyuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishya vachanam tava. That's what he said and started fighting. But when his son Abhimanyu died, he cried. But that crying was momentary. He didn't get affected by it. That, now my son is gone, what to do? Again, he resumed his duty. Again, he came back to his composer. So Yudhishthira, that's why that word momentarily is used. Yudhishthira was momentarily overtaken with grief. It's a passing away of somebody like exalted acharyas. If they quit their body, though we know that they are nitya lila pravishta, but still you'll feel the separation. And there is nothing wrong in that. But then the spiritual knowledge or seeing through the Shastra makes one come to the normal sanity platform and resume the duties. That's what it is. Okay, we'll stop here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.